make that sound. Anyway, we have a great panel for you this morning. We have an incredible room of folks joining us live. We also have an incredible number of people joining us online as well, and I want to welcome everybody to San Francisco for Dreamforce. This is our last day. Are we all going to be sad when this is over?
Yes.
Are we already looking forward to Dreamforce next year?
Yes.
Okay. What band are we going to have for next year? How are we going to do that again? Huh? I don't know. What? Fish? Okay. Raise your hand if you want fish. Okay, one person. Okay. Coldplay? I like Coldplay. You like
Beyonce?
Beyonce? Who wants Beyonce?
Woo!
All right. Anybody else? Rolling Stones? Raise your hand for the Rolling Stones.
Woo!
Not as big as Beyonce.
Yeah.
How about Madonna? Raise your hand for Madonna. She doesn't get privates. John Legend? John Legend's awesome, but he can't carry 50,000 people. He can do this room great. Amazing. He's amazing with 500 people.
Timberlake.
What's that?
Timberlake.
Oh, okay, Justin Timberlake. All right. You want your sexy back?
Yeah.
All right. What else? Any other ideas? What's that? Paul McCartney. All right. I was at a friend's house on Saturday night, and Paul McCartney played with U2 in Beverly Hills for 100 people. That was an unbelievable birthday. It was for U2's manager. And I'm going, how many people are going to Old Cello this weekend to hear Paul McCartney and the Stones? Oh, well, he's playing this weekend. I'm going. I'll see you at Old Cello where all the old people are going. But he was amazing. But I like Paul McCartney. Yeah, and we get the rest of the Beatles too. That Brown? Which one? Jackson Brown band?
Zach Brown.
Zach Brown band, okay, all right. Adele? Okay, who wants Adele? Oh, wow, all right. Black Eyed Peas? Well, we can ask for the Black Eyed Peas. We might be able to talk about that in a second. All right, with that, let me welcome our panelists out. So, please welcome my good friends, number one, Brian Moynihan, the CEO of Bank of America. Please welcome him. Shahrsad, the CEO of Broadband TV. Welcome. Okay, and I'm going to come down here and sit in this chair. So, anyway, I'm thinking about, we did this panel at the World Economic Forum, and we had all these folks, plus Bono, and I don't know why Bono didn't want to come to the panel this morning, but he had another commitment, but we had a good panel at Davos, and I thought it'd be fun to bring it to Dreamforce, and I thought this is a fantastic combination. And I think we'll hear a lot of amazing ideas. I don't want to make it too political, I don't want to make it too technical. I'm going to ask some kind of broad, open questions, and I think what I hope to do is help you see the incredible personalities here and diversification of thought. So anyway, I don't want to go into my personal beliefs and thinking, and especially around political things, but there's an election coming, and of course we want everyone to vote. That's extremely important. And I don't want to go through who my personal preference is for president. But let me ask you this. If you received a call from the new president, okay, asking you what the number one thing that you would like her to work on. For the first 100 days, or even just as a significant priority for her, for her administration, what would that be? So, Will, let's start with you. And can you, what would you, if you, what's the number one priority for the new president?
So I remember in 2008, you know, I was like inspired by Senator Obama. And after that speech in New Hampshire, I came back and was pumped up and wanted to do my part. And everyone thought, you're crazy. There's no way an African American with a Muslim name could ever become president. And we don't vote. I'm like, what do you mean we don't vote? Think about it, like the youth at that point in time never really was engaged. And having experienced that and, you know, it made an impact, it wasn't a real clear thing what the community wanted to get done. Because there was so many things to get done. But there wasn't a clear one, like what's the most important thing? You had the recession, you had the war, you had so many things in 2008. And now, it's clear as day that education is the most important thing now and the next 20 years, the next 40 years. America is so behind with our inner cities, America as a whole. How do you tackle, you know, our incarceration versus education, war versus education? Both of those things, incarceration and war, we spend more there than we do in education, and that is absurd. So it would be to recharge and just go all the way and get America, make America smart again.
Shahrzad?
I think for me it's more about job creation. I think, you know, economy is really important, and you know, my background is digital media, and you know, one of the greatest passions that I have in life is of creating jobs on a global basis, and obviously US is one of the biggest markets in the world. So, and we talk about this, it's about how can we make companies more responsible, and how can we define proper, credible bottom lines, right? As it relates to holding organizations accountable, so we don't have specifically only KPIs that are related to our financial performance, but we have, you know, simple, standardized KPIs that are really truly consumable by the intended audience that allows the stakeholders to, you know, make informed decisions. And this goes from us being accountable, you know, as it relates to how we treat our employees, how we treat our environment, how we, you know, make decisions that impacts our societies, our communities, as much as it does impact our, you know, financial performance. And I think this is probably one of the most important things that we are facing, and it would be my first ask from Senator Clinton.
So I think, following up on what Will said, I had a wonderful experience a couple weekends ago to witness the opening of the new museum. So you had this interesting thing where George W. Bush put this museum in motion after 100 years. This is the Museum of African American History and Culture. So after 100 years of trying to build a museum, George W. Bush said, we're going to build this thing. John Lewis and others sponsored legislation, he signed it. And at that time, you'd have never known that the president who would speak when it opened was an African American president. Think of that transmission. But when you saw the two of them on stage together, you recognize that I think the most important thing is we got to start to unify America behind education, job growth. And we need a leader that's going to say, I lead all the people, and I'm going to unify the country behind the broad principles we need, which is to make America smart again, get employment levels go in the right direction of quality jobs, and all that. And that's what's been missing, that unification. And so the advice I get is sit down with the people who you don't agree with, and don't agree with you, and figure out where you can get to something common, because then it'll happen. Otherwise, we'll just have consistent back and forth about who's the smarter person in the room. And as business leaders that run things, what's our job? It's to figure out the best out of everybody, not to say, let you go to war, and 5 years later we'll figure out what the product we should have built was 5 years ago, right? And so that unification is the best. It would be the advice I get. Sit down with the people who disagree with you and figure out why they disagree with you and how you can drive the country along education, job formation, and it's the capitalism with all the elements that Shahrzad talked about.
I've been waiting to ask you this question, Brian, because you know, we're in San Francisco, and I always feel very removed from what's going on in certain parts of the country, and I try to, it's one of the reasons I like to get on an airplane is actually go visit with customers and walk around the cities of our country. And you live in North Carolina, and we've seen a lot of things in North Carolina, especially this year, and we've seen not only this kind of tension with the LGBTQ community, but we've also seen racial tensions as well, especially recently. Can you give us your perspective? What's going on in the country right now in some of these areas of inequality?
Well, I think there's a natural reaction. So I think of the HB2 bill things, we took a hard stand that you have to get rid of it because it was taking away rights that were already there, and the bastard part will play out in the courts, but the core thing is we had teammates that worked around the country that suddenly said, I don't want to come to corporate headquarters because I'm afraid something's going to happen to me. And you start to think, we just had to, so we took a stand, and you and others took a stand, and we made it clear. And then we're trying to work on a solution to get it done, which is always hard, but because it became law. When you go to the other side, the Charlotte experience is not unique from what's going on in the communities around. And we as a company that operates on all, whether it's Tulsa, we operate there, Dallas, we operate there, Minneapolis, we operate there, New Orleans, we operate there. So we have in Orlando, in the Pulse nightclub, we operate there. So thinking through this, it is back to the question when you talk to the experts, Marc and Wade Henderson and others, there's basically two basic principles. The one is we got to get the education and workforce development so that we can show people a path to success. And then lower the potential that you're going to have a bad interface between police and minorities, and the result, whether who's right or wrong in a given case, it's just bad to have that happen. And the way to do that is to actually create jobs and economic growth. Near term, we've got to get people to talk together. In Charlotte, there's a lot of work that's been done. Someone made the paper recently on the Charlotte Chamber, led by my colleague Andrew Smith, where Hugh McCall, who was a leader in helping develop Charlotte, moving the city forward, and Harvey Gantt, the mayor, and they sat and talked about this and said, we got to go back to what made us great as Charlotte, which was to allow everybody to be successful. It's defining inclusion in its simplest form.
Did this surprise you to kind of see this kind of turmoil kind of going on, political, societal in Charlotte this year?
It is eye-opening when you watch national news and see things going on where you sit outside and have a drink, or at the restaurant you go to, and you sort of say, it's sad. It surprised you because it's shocking. It saddens you because it happens, and so I think the team in Charlotte's working very hard with the communities, the business community, obviously the mayor, obviously the city council, obviously the police chief, and the city manager working very hard to get this thing back on course.
You've seen this kind of tension when you were a child, Shahrsad, in Iran, and some of the things that you went through. What's your perspective? And you can tell us a little bit about your story and kind of relate it back to what Brian is talking about.
I think what is so interesting, I grew up in Iran, and I think at the time when I was there was obviously a lot of instability from the revolution to war, and not having obviously access to freedom of speech makes a big difference. And I think that we live in a day and age where, when you look at platforms like, YouTube and Facebook and Snapchat and Twitter, it allows for you to really express your opinion and broadcast, your message to the world and create an audience to be able to actually be a storyteller. And this was obviously not possible when I was actually younger. And I think that as it relates to, LGBTQ issues, what I really like about it, we have launched a partnership with Huffington Post, Outspeak, and it's about empowering journalism and creating a new generation of journalism and, changing news in the way we tell our stories, and really empowering this new generation of content creators. And we did great work with some of the top actually influencers in the LGBTQ community to actually tell their message and help the others that are actually in the same situation to feel like they can actually speak out and they can tell their story and feel a lot more empowered. And I think that we have leaders like you that stand behind these issues and that really kind of help smaller companies like Broadband TV to say, hey, I can do it too. I can get behind people in my community. So really, I think it's very different that even though social has allowed for us to reach a global audience, It's about how you can actually activate that global audience on a local basis and have strong role models that you can look up to in terms of, really standing for what you believe in. And it's very different. Again, I grew up in Iran and none of that was possible. And social was not something that existed at that point in time. So I feel that even though there is a lot of bullying happening with digital, still you have that ability to be able to kind of express yourself. So it's kind of, as much as it's sad, and I think it's 2016, and gender equality, gender diversity needs to be accepted, I think it's one of the things that we need to actually work together as a society to improve. And I think, again, we need more people that can stand up for what they believe in. I think we can't have, you have leaders that lead, you have leaders that follow, and you have laggards. And I think at the end of the day, we need to pull those folks in to set an example for the younger generation so they can express themselves.
Are you surprised to see this kind of this narrative come into the business community?
I think it's actually amazing that it has come to the business community, because when we go back to defining those, quadruple bottom line, a big part of it is like we need to be able to report, measure, disclose gender equality and gender diversity. We need to be a lot more transparent, and we need to actually get, stakeholders to actually rate our systems to say, how good are we? How are we treating our employees? Are we actually, where do we stand with equal pay? It's 2016, right? And if a public company like Salesforce can actually address that, every other company should actually follow and do the same. So I think it's sad that still 2016 and we're dealing with issues like this, but I think business leaders need to speak about it. They need to have a position. And I think more importantly, as it relates to, again, defining those KPIs, I think gender equality and diversity needs to be one of those KPIs that we define for the business.
Well, you opened the conference up with that beautiful video, and thank you again for doing that. And obviously you're able to express yourself through so many different vehicles, whether it's music, video, or even technology, like your incredible new product there you're wearing around your neck. Can you give us your perspective of how does this all fit together?
Well, in culture, you have society telling you two things if you live in an inner city. And all along, if you live in a great neighborhood like Brentwood, society tells you that anything's possible. There's teachers there to guide you. The investment is there to make sure that you either could be like your dad or your mom, or carve a new path. There's a path. In the inner city, there is no. The path is, we know that. And it's to, juvenile hall, in prison. Or there's a path to crime, to survive. And then, music, in like the 1950, Tutti Frutti, Oh Rudy, blah, 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 blah. It became a way out. Sports became a way out. And that's why if you go to Chicago, a 5'2" guy is trying to be like Michael Jordan, not Michael Dell. If you go to Watts, Compton, a guy's trying to be like Stevie Wonder, not like Steve Jobs. And that's because his neighborhood doesn't tell him it's possible, the teachers don't tell him it's possible, the curriculum they're taking in class doesn't tell him it's possible. When the biggest companies in the world are Apple, Google, Salesforce, but kids aren't learning that in school. So for you to dream about doing that, you have to make a conscious leap. You have to blindly leap. Right? And then thank God for Beats, because some folks got hip to the game that we could create products. And I think there's going to be more of that. But when you see things on TV where, people are getting shot by law enforcement, when there's other places to shoot someone. I mean, if you shoot them in the leg, why are they shooting to kill? Mm-hmm. That's the part that I just don't get. That's the part that's just hard to swallow. This is our law enforcement. Y'all got tasers. You can't shoot them to where they fall on the floor. Why are you so afraid to where you shoot them to kill them? And then you know that the system is going to make sure that they're going to justify it. That's the hard part. And more importantly, that coupled with no opportunity, just it builds hopelessness. Like, oh, I ain't gonna can't do nothing then. I'm over here trying to survive from other kids with guns. Now I'm trying to survive from the cops. Then that's like, what do you expect a 17-year-old to do? This person is trying to survive from the local gangs, and now I'm trying to survive from this police officer. And the music that I listen to, everyone's talking about shooting somebody, taking your girlfriend, selling you drugs, and celebrating I just got out of prison. So even the music, we've never had this before. 1950 was wop bop loop bop wham bam boom. Now it's shoot 'em up, boom boom boom. I was locked up in a room. Now I'm out here doing right. I'm about that life. I'm about trying to change my community. I rep the streets, but I'm not trying to protect the streets. And more importantly, I got this cop that I'm fearing now. Why in America people fear the police? That's weird to me. You tell me another country where the citizens fear the law enforcement. That's something we should not be proud of. And so it just question marks all over the place. That's the reason why, whereas love, we wanted to shed a light on what's happening in Syria, but then also what's happening here in Chicago and Baton Rouge and, every inner city in America. It's the same horror if you're 11-year-old. All the while, America births the biggest companies in the world. So we need help. The entrepreneurs need to mentor kids. CEOs need to, look at if you're going to make B2B products for companies, and those companies have customers. Guess what? A lot of those customers are in inner cities. So we should care about them and the communities they live in, because it's obvious other folks have chosen a side. Like, if this was 1980, a company couldn't go out and voice who they side by. You wanted to be all things to all people. Not in 2016. You can say the most absurd stuff and run for president and almost win. Think about that. 2016 is it's a very unique time.
Shahrsad, you went to jail yourself when you were a child, and you had your own run-in with the police in Iran, and there was fear there, is my guess, of law enforcement. Can you relate
when
to
Bill said that, I said,
what-
there are other countries, but they're mainly third world countries. It's not a first world country like the US where you should be afraid of law enforcement. But yeah, I think it is a big issue. At the end of the day, I think the law enforcement police, they're there to empower, people to stand behind them, to make them feel safe and secure. And it's really sad to see that, in a country like the United States, that's not the case. But I think one thing that is happening in 2016, I think people are starting to pay attention to it. The examples that Will mentioned, these are not new. This has been happening for many years, right? It's just that now we're hearing about it. Now people are sharing those stories. And I think now we have the ability to be able to kind of do something about it. And I think what you mentioned earlier about, should this be a business matter? It should be. Because I think at the end of the day, what differentiates a Salesforce from another company, like a company like Salesforce, is about the culture. It all starts with corporate values. It starts with corporate culture. Culture, at the end of the day, eats strategy at breakfast, for breakfast if you guys have breakfast. But I think ultimately it comes down to really having those right values, so you attract the right talent, and you build great companies that together, you can actually have a much greater impact, innovate, impact the society. And I think, kind of growing up, obviously in Iran, I did have a very, obviously interesting, difficult experience, but it got me to understand that in life you can't take anything for granted. That, if you are put in this position, you're fortunate enough to make an impact, you are responsible, you have to do something about it, you have to speak out. And that's why I'm sitting here, and I like to express my opinion to like everybody as it relates to, hey, you have to go out there, you have to vote, you have to, again, this is, United States is the strongest country in the world, and we were talking about the president of, not to make this a political debate, but is the most powerful person in the world. This is a very important decision, and I think it impacts not just the US, but also the rest of the world in terms of how we bring safety to everyone. And we live in a connected world. We no longer live in these silos or local communities. And we need to understand that a decision that you make in Charlotte, a decision that you make in San Francisco does impact other cities and other parts of the world. And I think this is kind of, I think my message is to really kind of, again, speak out, stand for what you believe in. And if you're fortunate to live in a country like the United States, don't take it for granted. Do something about it.
You voted with your feet, and you got out of you left, and then you went to British Columbia, and you got a PhD in, I think, artificial intelligence and computer science. And you found your way out. Will has obviously found, his way out. If you were to kind of go back to that moment, what advice would you be giving yourself?
I think that nothing in life is impossible. And I moved to Canada. I didn't even speak English, and you can tell now I have a bit of an accent. But it is hard. I moved to Canada when I was 16, and I was a woman, a minority, and didn't know how to use a computer. Didn't have an email account, and went to study computer science, and everyone in my class knew a lot more than me. And I was a student that was, doing really well as a teenager in high school, and to just come to university and all of a sudden think that, oh my God, I have so much to catch up on, and everyone tells you, well, don't challenge yourself. And I'm glad that I didn't listen to those people. It's about really, truly believing in yourself, following your passion, and knowing that nothing in life is impossible. If you do follow your passion, if you know what you're doing, if you know your strengths, then go for it. And I think that was one thing that I think my parents, they were quite surprised. They always thought that I'll go back. But when I started Broadband TV, it was always about like my project, and until it picked up and we reached our first 100 million views, it was always about, okay, is this going to scale or is it not going to scale? But I think that the other thing that I would actually say about, to tell myself, or the younger self, or entrepreneurs in this day and age, is really think about social impact. I think entrepreneurs these days are actually a lot smarter, and they're a lot more connected, and they know that they can solve real problems in the world. And I think what technology allows us to do is to really be able to solve both old and new problems in a scalable way that was never possible. I have obviously great passion for artificial intelligence, big data, because it really helps us come up with solutions that was never before possible. And I think that it's always good in life to challenge yourself, push the boundaries, and never get comfortable. The minute you get comfortable, you know that you're not growing as an individual. So that would be kind of my thinking.
Education seems to be a common theme. Will brought it up in his comments. I think that he's, convinced me, and I know that in the well-developed narrative he has, it's something that's one of the most critical things that we can do. Shahrsad has that as a key part of her, path to actualization. How do you look at this, Brian? How do we look at the U.S. educational system, and how do we help to lift ourselves up?
Well, so you think about what banks do to support communities, and so it help the real economy grow, and you're going to have workers and capable qualified workers in the context of what's being asked to do today. So we have all-time low unemployment rate, we have millions of jobs unfilled, so where's the match? So I think it's incumbent upon businesses to help create the framework. And so we work with in one of the cities we operate in. We work with the community colleges, and we build programs for those to train people exactly in the jobs we need. And so that's a pragmatic solution. Another community will work and we're working towards full day pre-K for everybody. And basically, the first thing the business community did is say, how much would it cost, and then how to fund it. And then another community, we work in sort of middle school level. But if you go through the common theme around all the mayors in the world that I deal with, the idea is they need help from our teammates to mentor kids, from our money to help build programs, from our ability to analyze, to help study, so that they can create the case that education will win. Because it's going to be a 30-year process. You can't change it. So in one community, it's helping with some charter school development. Another community is helping with public schools. And so I think that's our job, is to figure out what works and what scales. And so with the International Business Council, we looked at what can scale across various cities on education and youth unemployment. And a group of us have been funding some programs there. And we also have done it with various groups in the United States. And we've done it on our own. And so I think it's all about not any one thing, it's all those things, and just keep working at them, And then I based a little bit of this, and you've been kind of my brother, from what I learned from operating a school in Haiti, which is one of the toughest places. And if you just gave kids the light to read by, electricity to have a computer running, and fed them well, and kept them there. You took kids that couldn't go beyond 7th grade, took them through, the French school system, all the way through the back. They all passed. They're all business people, or all nurses, or doctors, or things. And it's been unbelievable, 30 years. And you can see the impact by just getting into it.
Well, your brother's been at the conference, and I know this morning he had to get on an airplane to go back to be with the people in Haiti, and our thoughts and prayers are with them and with everybody that he supports there. So please thank him on behalf of all the great work that he's doing. Well, in the first half an hour, we kind of talked about this kind of broad look at what's going on in society. I think it'd be nice to shift over to technology. It's a tech conference, and everybody here has some views on technology. It is a tech conference. There's an inexplicable link between technology and society today, and I like to make sure that we touch on those society issues. And I personally, just for my own selfish interest, I'm very interested in what some of the smartest people I know have to think about how we're going to deal with the most toughest issues in the world. But you're also, all three of you, visionaries in technology. And Will, you have shown us incredible vision in terms of so many technologies, not just wearables, but now wearables again. You've redefined what wearables is. And can you give us your vision of where is this technology going? You have these incredible headphones that you're wearing around your neck. I know you just launched them in the Apple Store. They've got artificial intelligence built into them. They're connected with apps. It's amazing what you've built. What is going on with technology today? And I'd love for you to sell us some of those headphones while you're at it. I think people here will be absolutely fascinated with what you've built as another amazing product.
So, right now it's like a transition between something that we live on, we carry in our hand, and we touch. And we're going to move to things that we just speak to. And wearable was just the entry word to get society going and open-minded about wearing the thing you live on. Before, you wore a jacket and it kept you warm. Tomorrow, your jacket's going to do more than just keep you warm and store the phone that you live on. If you think about, a lapel on it, I don't know what these lapels on my shirt are for, but we all wear them. I don't know what purpose they serve. Tomorrow, if you think of a luxury hotel, a luxury hotel is luxurious, 5 stars, and they have to have services. But your luxury products you buy give you no services. So tomorrow, that $5,000 jacket, $3,000 jacket, $2,000 bag, $4,000 bag, it's going to do more than just store your physical stuff. It's going to store your data. And your wearable, right now, we give all our data to other companies as consumers. Just give it away, give it away, give it away, give it away. Tomorrow, we're going to want to keep it because the data is going to empower us and our communities. Like, Watts is messed up, it's underserved. But what if you served Watts with their own data? And what if people that were out there in Watts were wearing smart stuff and the community knew about the people that lived in the community? Right now, it's like the community is deaf, dumb, and blind, doesn't really know the people that live in there. And you go out and you spend your money and you put these clothes on. But wearable is not just something you put on your wrist that talks to your phone. That is limiting on a new paradigm. So, I got in this space because of my participation and with Beats and my enthusiasm around tech and how it could, change inner cities, but more importantly, it's the greatest place to create, be creative, and to edit, to think, and to push folks that you brought together. So I went out and, started working with a team in Bangalore, India, and then went out and acquired an AI team in Tel Aviv. And we created this voice OS, if you will. AI, it's conversational. You talk to it like I'm talking to you right now. You don't have to talk to it a certain way with certain keywords. You can figure out what you're saying and make your life easier out there when you're out there in the world. So there's things like that in your house, like Alexa, that's great. Our stuff is for out there in the world. And it's in these things. We have awesome jackets for these things. We call them buttons. They're made from the perspective of fashion. Gucci will launch Gucci buttons later on this year. You can, by November, you can go to every Apple store around the world and buy our buttons. And it's the beginning of a great conversation of popular culture and AI.
Also, not only design an amazing product, which are these buttons with artificial intelligence and that are kind of the next generation of wearables, but when you're getting ready to market and launch your products, I notice you always try to break through with a new idea, and in this case, you chose a relationship with Apple, the Apple Store, with Angela Ahrens. You're trying to reconceptualize how you're going to market and sell these products. How is that related to what you're doing?
Angela is like probably one of the awesomest, strongest, most fierce women I've met in my travels. And one day we were hanging out and she saw the headphones and she said, "What are those?" I was like, "Oh, these headphones are for my dial." And we made a non-tethered wearable phone that we're currently selling in the UK at Three is our mobile partner in the UK. Our voice OS is stable there, and we're getting a lot of data and feedback from the customers that have bought our dial. And so she says, "We should sell those at the Apple Store." I was like, "Oh, no, this is a companion product to our phone." She's like, "No, well, that's a product. And so certain people push you to see what you're working on totally different. So I thank God for that conversation. I've known her ever since she was at Burberry, and now she's right in all the Apple stores. We're grateful for this partnership with the greatest and most inspirational company on the planet, Apple. So yeah, we're really excited about this fourth quarter. So people can go out, don't forget, this will be the best Christmas present. and the platform is open, right? It will be open next year, so developers can develop on our Anita. And it's Anita I need to call my mom, I need to send the email. I need to know what's happening in Syria. I need to know what's going on in Compton. So it's pretty amazing. And it's hard for me to talk about the stuff that I made, because I don't, I come from a world where, you work on it, it's right, people hear it, and then they share it. It's hard for me to be a cheerleader, but fuck it, I got the pom-poms. Just flew by.
Shahrsad, Will has done this incredible work building artificial intelligence into his platform. We met, I was on a panel on artificial intelligence. You were in the audience. I didn't realize when you started quizzing me on various algorithms and the variations and how they related to deep learning that you were somebody who had a deep background on that. And you've taken your company to this incredible height and success as one of the leaders in artificial intelligence, especially as it relates to video. Can you give us a perspective? Where is AI going, and how should we be looking at this technology?
I think it's I think it's still early days with AI, but I think there are a couple of really interesting areas within AI that I'm actually very much interested in. And one is deep learning. I think looking at the massive amounts of data that we have available that is not labeled, how can you actually extract information and retrieve that information very quickly and be able to actually make smarter decisions. So this is one of the areas that is very much so helping big data analytics, and this is something that we've actually leveraged quite a bit at Broadband TV. We have the second largest database of video, and it has not only helped us apply and actually build algorithms around big data analytics to be able to optimize content, better distribute content, monetize that content, target specifically individuals around it, but it's also helped us create better internal processes as it relates to how we reach out to talent, how we reach out to content creators, how we actually match a specific talent representative with a specific content creator or channel. I think the other part that is very interesting is also emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence, again, is a great frontier in AI, and I think as it relates to us being able to understand humans' moods and understand how, when someone, let's say, is consuming content, or as it relates to medicine or addressing, let's say, depression, having technology and leveraging cognitive systems to be able to understand, what a human can feel can really help us even have much smarter algorithms, especially in medicine, entertainment, and obviously automotive. The other, I think, I guess as it relates to AI, again, I'm passionate about jobs, so it's about how can we create more meaningful jobs. For the longest time, computers have been used to, or humans have been using computers to actually do a lot of data crunching. This is all now possible with AI. So it's about how do you transition white-collar jobs to white-collar jobs that are actually meaningful, that are more human-based. And I think finally, as it relates to artificial intelligence, I think it has also simple applications that we've already seen that is working. Many great companies are using AI for better customer service. Whether if it's coming to you kind of picking your outfit during the day, it's about, okay, maybe it's a little cold, chilly, I feel like I want to wear an outfit that is a bit warmer, and it's looking at your budget, what you have already in your wardrobe, your likes, your dislikes, to actually kind of save time for individuals. And at Broadband TV, as it relates to kind of what we have built in-house, I talked about obviously internal processes, but we have also leveraged AI for pattern recognition, because at the end of the day, when you're looking at online video, there's massive amounts of content that gets deployed on platforms like YouTube, Facebook, Snapchat every minute. On YouTube alone, you have 400 minutes of content that gets deployed. So it's about how do you actually go through all this data to be able to, optimize it. We've leveraged AI to build face detection, object detection, sentimental analysis algorithms around a video to be able to get the right content in front of the right audience. Because once you get the content in front of the right audience, it means that their engagement gets improved. And then we have built engagement modules to actually further enhance, watch time, minutes that actually users watch for every video, because ultimately that would further enhance, our ability to monetize that video. Because, again, one of the ways that we monetize content is on an advertising basis. So the more engaged the audience is, it means that we can actually generate more revenue. And I think finally, kind of it's around collaboration. I think for us in online video, it's about how do we actually get creators to create more quality content. So how do you find two creators based on their skill set, based on where they are, their content that they produce based on their passion, to be able to connect with them, to connect them with each other so they can collaborate. And we've actually used AI to build strong recommender engines to be able to improve the quality of content online. Again, it's about this new generation of storytellers. How can they create better content that would actually have a more engaged audience? And these are some of the examples. I mean, we also have built the Magnetics, which is another product that we built at Broadband TV outside Catalyst, which is helping advertisers and creating solutions like branded entertainment at scale and measuring branded entertainment campaigns. And there's a lot more to do, which is really exciting.
You and Will both mentioned kind of the databases that you're building. Will, in terms of kind of his ability to interact with voice, your ability to analyze video, you both now have very large databases that you're curating. How important is that in artificial intelligence?
It's quite important because I think at the end of the day, when you're looking at your learning, you have better learning algorithms if your data set is larger. And I think it's, and if your data set is also more diverse. I think, earlier on, we started building these solutions about 7-8 years ago. And I think it's easy to build an algorithm that has 50% efficiency as it relates to probability of its impact. But it's about when you get to 70%, 80%, how do you get from 80% to 90%? And the more data that you have, it actually helps you improve the algorithms that you build in-house. So that I think is very important. I think the other part of it is, we operate in 20 different markets. And actually, when I say markets, I mean languages. So this is about, a lot more countries. We serve 18.2 billion monthly impressions. So we really, and across different verticals. So we really need to understand user consumption across every vertical that we operate to be able to make sure the algorithms work for different user groups within the verticals that we operate.
Brian, you have a lot of data, and you have a lot of diversity in your business too, whether it's brokerage, institutional, corporate, mortgages, across the whole board. We're hearing a lot more about robo-banks and robo-trading and this kind of thing. What is the discussion today inside Bank of America in regards to artificial intelligence?
So I think it fits along multiple dimensions, but the key is you have to think about how it helps consumers, and the voice recognition that Will talked about is exactly the point. So we are working to the next generation. So right now you can use your thumb to bank, but you still have to use your thumb. So when can you change that to your voice, and when can you just give commands, and when can you walk around? So the consumer team's working on that, and we're piloting to see how it comes through. But the artificial intelligence actually, if you think about a company like ours, we have $30 billion in personnel expense a year, and then we have a bunch of computers that runs on them. In fact, we figure out ways to make that personnel expense incrementally more effective, not efficient, but effective. They can get one more client like you to use this for FX. But what the problem is, if they got to go through 30,000 or 90,000 middle market.
And what happened to the Great British Pound last night, I think I could use that.
Okay, thank you. We'll work on that. But if you go through 90,000 clients, you're literally saying to 600 relationship managers or 1,000 small business bankers, go out and start with client one and go through 90,000 and ask the question. Where if you use, today we have artificial intelligence running, it says these 1,500 clients are the right ones to call, and it's Marc, Paul, and Brian. It's not a mystery. And how do you do that is by accumulating the data we have plus appending external data to say the business model, the plan, and when you get to more and more customers, that's what it has. So it helps people be more efficient. It helps us do our risk analysis, that's obvious. It helps in algorithmic trading. It helps all these things. But if you think about it, it helps make our people more efficient and make our clients more efficient, and that's what you get paid for. And at the same time, you all have to realize that no matter whether it's robo-advised or not, there is going to be a point where people are critically important. And until you get the EQ somewhere it isn't today. And so the question is, we always have people, but can you make them incrementally more effective? Can you make them operate faster, more efficient, have the customer better? And that's what effectively robo-advising is all about, is you can help people save money who would be hard to serve on a meaningful model because the amount of revenue is not available in a very uniform way, and take advantage of all the skills we have that you can access with your wealth, but the average consumer can access. And that what helps you do that is both the artificial intelligence and then the distribution capability.
Seems like it would also help in the world's fraud and security, which seems like it's an increasing gambit for everybody. Do you guys talk about that, and is that a major initiative inside the bank?
Well, obviously it is, because in the end of the day we have the most important part of a person is, in terms of them conducting commerce and buying things, is their financial data. And so we have to keep it secure, but you have to make it available to be used everywhere. And so analyzing who the bad guys are, analyzing who the people who are committing fraud are, analyzing the customers' and their behaviors, and anticipating that is critically important. And so the fraud filters and stuff, and 5 years ago were pretty rough. So if you went to some country, you called me up and say, geez, my card didn't work, why'd you shut me off? And you said, well, you went to some country, didn't tell you were going. Now you can basically set that on and off at all times. And then, by the way, we're starting to anticipate when people are actually someplace they go off and that we don't cut them off. And then we also then at the same time are accumulating a huge database of who the bad actors are and just sort of knocking them out of the system. And fraud losses in our company are $400 million a year, so anything we do to fix that is good. And by the way, it's not a pleasant experience when somebody says I didn't get something, and you spend a lot of money adjudicating that question. So not only drive the losses down, but you drive the amount of money it takes, the amount of time it takes, the amount of customer dissatisfaction, because it's not pleasant to say I didn't charge that and work it through. So it has tremendous applicability. And then just learning. But the point Shahrsad made is really, you let the machines learn. You're never going to have a person who's smart enough and operates pace to make it work.
Well, I'd like to kind of close as we do and try to make it the case for optimism. Can you, Shahrsad, I'll start with you. Can you tell us one idea, one thought, maybe one product you've seen, something that surprised you or that has excited you, that has given you kind of a case for optimism for the future, something that you're excited about?
Optimism in technology or optimism?
You can pick any area. That's a broad question.
I'm sure I'm going to have a better answer for this if I could think about it a bit more. But I actually like technology that is applicable now, that is existing. You can see the application. I think one of the most interesting things that happened recently was Pokemon Go, and I'm sure a lot of people, they play the game. But it really spoke to potential that AR has across mainstream. And I think that still there's a lot of work to be done in AR, and I think with augmented reality there's a lot of application from medicine to automotive to design to fashion to retail. But we need obviously a much greater library of content. We need to make sure that the reality and the environment, they interact with each other more seamlessly, and obviously we need better software and hardware. But I do see great application of creating better technologies and better apps that are just outside, obviously, gaming, that can actually help improve our lives in, again, healthcare and medicine. So that to me is very exciting as it relates to both AR and VR. And I think Goldman Sachs was saying that the market is a big market, it's an $80 billion market by 2025. I think AI is also has many applications, and again I go back to emotional intelligence. I think this is something that is really promising applications, but again it's really early days, and I'm very excited for us to kind of look into how we can actually leverage emotional intelligence in serving better, more entertaining content that educates masses overall in the industry.
Very nice. Well, we have a whole session on that coming up right after this, so you're well covered. Brian, what's something for you that someone's excited you, an idea, a product, a service, someone you've met recently that's given you a case for optimism?
Well, I think if you just think the power of what we can do for a customer and a client based on the fact that we can be real time with them and engaging with them is really optimistic, because when I was growing up and you were growing up, Mark, you stood in line at the teller, you put the check there, you got some money back, then you went to the store, then you bought what would have been the early generation of Will's buttons, and all that took so much time. Just think of the optimism now that can be done all for you with a voice command. Buy Will's buttons and off it goes. So, and so think about that. And so I don't know where this ball is going to take us, but it is incredible whether you think about it in medicine, whether you think about financial services, whether you think about it in analytics and energy efficiency and sustainability. The ability to solve these larger problems just because you can process this amount of data on a pragmatic solutions basis as opposed to a theoretical physics basis or the theoretical biology basis is unbelievable. And it's all enabled by this, there's tremendous capacity of data analytics and building a haystack in a way that can actually be analyzed. And that gives me incredible optimism. If you know what we see in the fields of cancer or something like that, you say, think about where they were and where they are now and the specificity of treatment. Those are amazing. Now, financial services, what are we about? We're helping people live their financial lives. What we can do is keep them on course. And by having that interaction and engagement and that real time engagement. We can use Salcon and Better Money Habits to help people make the decision about buying, leasing a car. It sounds simple, but it's confusing to people. But you couldn't do that before because think of all the things that had to fall in place. So to me, you have to be optimistic about the impact, the ability to be on a granular one-to-one basis, real time with the customer, and anticipating the next move is just beyond belief. But it's a corporate customer.
Do you think we would be able to do that on something like Twitter, for example?
You might be better. You might be a better person to answer that question than me.
So, augmented reality, artificial intelligence, doing it in a real-time context, wherever you are, in whatever context it's in. Well, what's something that's been exciting you? In technology person, an idea that you've had, something that you're working on, playing Dreamforce next year, you know, what are you excited about?
The thing that gets me, that keeps me going down this path, you know, knowing that there's walls in front of me, and I either have to run through the wall, jump the wall, go under the wall, go around the wall, blow up the wall. The thing that keeps me optimistic is the kids that I chose to make an obligation 8 years ago. And, you know, I went to my old neighborhood and I told them, hey guys, this path, you know, and they dedicated themselves. And they graduated this year.
Woo.
And they're going to school for computer science. These are like unlikely candidates. And robotics. And there's a lady right there named Lily, who, there she is, she helped us. I met her in Beijing. Secretary Clinton, a month before I went to Beijing, I sat in Secretary Clinton's office and I told her about my kids. And she says, I have something that would be great for your kids. There's this thing I'm starting called 100,000 Strong. We're sending 100,000 American students to China for student exchange. I said, can my kids be a part of that? She said, of course. Would you mind doing some PSAs for us on why it's important for culture exchange? I was like, of course. So then I went back to my kids and be like, look, your guys' grades got to get to, you guys are 1.2. Some of you guys are 0.7. If you guys get your grades up, you got to go to China. So I go to China. I'm in the ambassador's house and I meet Lily. I'm like, hey Lily, what do you do? She was like, I went to MIT for computer science and AI. I was like, get the F out of here, for real. I want to meet people like that. Can we exchange phone numbers? Then we exchange phone numbers. Then I see her in DC during the inauguration. And then I said, hey, what are you doing? You want to come work with me over at my foundation? She said, yes. I was like, I need mentors for my kids. So this lady is hands-on, one of the most integral folks that help these kids realize that, you know, their possibilities, the infinite possibilities in themselves. Like, these kids are poor, and it's illegal to do racial profiling, you know, in government. But with AI and data, well, that's different. All you have to do is put in zip code and financial, and then that's a new type of racism. This new type of racial profiling to keep people from getting jobs. So how does this pay into what we're doing with AI stuff we're doing? We're getting the kids involved in the conversation so that they can start training these algorithms to see infinite possibilities based on interest, not finance. Right? Because you're going to base somebody, you're going to judge them because of their neighborhood and how much money that neighborhood makes and what they make. But you're not going to look and see what they're interested in and how that data might put them in a place where now, look, if you were to look at me at 10 years old, you would not see that I would be up here with the head of Bank of America, Marc, Benioff, and this wizard. If you were to look at her shoes in Iran, you would be like, no way. But her interest brought her here. My interest brought me here. So we gotta start looking at these kids' interests and surround them with a bunch of mentors and show them the infinite possibilities. So that's what's, but you gotta know the downside. You have to be pessimistic too, like, look, you're gonna end up in prison, but we're not gonna let that happen, are we? Right? You gotta know the pitfalls to know, you know, where you're gonna strive, how you're gonna climb. You gotta know your terrain. You have to have a bird's eye view. Twitter's great because it gives you a bird's eye view.
Thank you, Will. Conclude this by just telling you what my case for optimism is, which is it's the conversations that I've had over the years with all three of you and getting to know you, and also the conversations I've had with everyone in this room and at this conference over the last week, and the incredible curiosity that is shared by the three of you, by our whole community, by looking for ways to make the world better. So many incredible conversations happening, so many ideas, so many incredible visions for a vision for an improved world. So thank you for everything that you guys are doing. Thank you for everything that you guys are doing as well. And thanks for being here at Dreamforce. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please make your way forward to the compassion session. Thank you.
I would disagree, but...
Makes me sweat.